Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of Luna Station and watched the stars disappear. One by one, the familiar points of light that had guided humanity for thousands of years vanished behind massive alien ships. The HFY Empire had arrived, and their fleet was bigger than anything humans had ever imagined. The first contact protocols that Earth's governments had spent decades preparing were useless now. There had been no greeting, no attempt at communication, no peaceful exchange of knowledge. The aliens had simply appeared in Earth's solar system and immediately began moving toward the homeworld. Their intent was clear from the beginning. Jake pressed his hand against the cool metal wall and felt the station vibrate slightly. The artificial gravity generators were working harder than usual, struggling to maintain stability as the massive alien ships passed nearby. Each HFY vessel was at least 3 times larger than humanity's biggest military ship, and there were thousands of them. Admiral Morrison, incoming transmission from the alien fleet, called out Lieutenant Amy Carter from the communications station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. Everyone on Luna Station knew they were witnessing either humanity's first contact with alien life or the beginning of their extinction. Jake walked to the command center and nodded to Amy. "Put it through the main speakers," he said. The transmission that followed would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the universe. The voice that filled the command center was deep and mechanical, clearly coming through some kind of translation device. "Primitive species of the third planet, you have been selected for integration into the HFY Empire. Your world contains resources that will serve the greater good of our civilization. Surrender now and your people will be relocated to suitable work colonies. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species." The transmission ended and silence filled the command center. Jake looked around at his crew and saw the same expression on every face. They had all grown up watching movies about alien invasions, but none of those stories had prepared them for this moment. The aliens weren't interested in conquest or domination. They saw humans as nothing more than animals to be relocated or eliminated. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. Amy checked her instruments. "The alien fleet will reach Earth's orbit in 6 hours. Our defense fleet is moving to intercept, but Admiral Morrison... She paused, unable to finish the sentence. Jake understood. Earth's entire space military consisted of 43 ships, most of them designed for patrol duties and asteroid mining. Support. Against thousands of alien warships, they stood no chance. But surrender wasn't an option either. The aliens had made it clear that humans would be treated as slaves at best. "Get me Commander Brooks on the USS Washington," Jake ordered. Lisa Brooks was leading the Earth Defense Fleet, and she deserved to know what they were facing. The communication link crackled to life, and Lisa's face appeared on the main screen. "Jake, I'm seeing the same sensor readings you are," Lisa said. "We're outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but we can't just let them waltz into Earth's atmosphere. My pilots are ready to fight." Jake nodded. "I know they are. But Lisa, these aliens aren't like us. They see humans as insects to be stepped on." "They've done this before, probably many times." "Then we'll show them that insects can bite back," Lisa replied. "I've been looking at their formation patterns. They're moving in perfect geometric arrangements, like they're following some kind of military manual, very rigid, very predictable." "That might be our only advantage," Jake said. "Human tactics have always been about adaptation and creativity. Maybe we can use that." Lisa's expression hardened. "Jake, I need you to send every available ship to rendezvous with my fleet. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, even the tourist shuttles. Anything that can carry weapons or ram into an alien ship." "Lisa, those aren't military vessels. The crews aren't trained for combat." "Then they'll learn fast or we'll all die trying," Lisa said. "The alien fleet is already splitting up. Some ships are heading for the moon, others toward Mars. They're not just attacking Earth. They want to control the entire solar system." Jake watched the tactical display as the alien fleet continued its inexorable advance. The HFY ships moved with mechanical precision, each one maintaining exact distances from its neighbors, It was impressive, but it was also rigid. Human. Military doctrine had always emphasized flexibility and improvisation. Maybe that would be enough. All civilian ships, this is Admiral Morrison, Jake announced over the general communication channel. We need every vessel capable of spaceflight to join the defense fleet. This is not a request. This is a fight for the survival of our species. The response was immediate. Cargo ships changed course toward the defense fleet. Mining vessels armed with industrial cutting tools joined the formation. Even the luxury cruise ship Star Princess, loaded with tourists from Europa, volunteered to join the fight. Humanity was about to face its greatest challenge, and they were doing it together. Commander Brooks began organizing the mismatched fleet into attack formations. The human ships couldn't match the firepower of the alien vessels, but they were faster and more maneuverable. Lisa's plan was simple: hit the aliens hard and fast, then scatter before they could respond. It was a strategy that had worked for human forces throughout history when facing superior enemies. The first engagement began when the alien fleet reached the asteroid belt. Human ships hiding among the rocks launched surprise attacks, using mining charges and industrial explosives as weapons. The HFY ships, expecting easy victory, were caught off guard by the unconventional tactics. Jake watched from Luna Station as explosions lit up the darkness of space. Human ships darted between the massive alien vessels like angry wasps, striking at weapon systems and engine pods. The HFY returned fire with devastating energy weapons, but their shots were aimed at where the human ships had been, not where they were going. "They're trying to fight us like we're another empire," Lisa reported during a brief lull in the battle. "But we're not following their rules. Every time they think they've figured out our pattern, we change it." The battle raged for hours. Human ships were destroyed, their crews vaporized by alien energy weapons. But for every human vessel lost, the aliens paid a price. The HFY had superior technology and overwhelming numbers, but they had never faced an enemy that refused to fight. Fair. As the alien fleet finally reached Earth's orbit, Jake counted the losses. Nearly 200 HFY ships had been destroyed or severely damaged. The human fleet had lost 26 vessels, including some of the civilian ships that had volunteered to fight. It was a terrible price, but humanity had proven something important. They were not helpless insects waiting to be stepped on. They were fighters, and they would not go quietly into extinction. The war for Earth's survival had begun, and the aliens had just learned that humans were far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Captain Ryan Kelly watched through the viewport as the damaged HFY cruiser drifted slowly through space. The alien ship was massive, easily 10 times the size of his vessel, but it was bleeding atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. The battle 3 days ago had left it crippled and abandoned by the main fleet. "This is our chance to learn about them," Ryan told his boarding team. "We need to understand how they think, how they fight, and most importantly, how we can beat them." Tech Specialist Amy Carter checked her equipment one final time. The atmosphere readings show their ships use a nitrogen-oxygen mix similar to Earth. We can breathe in there. But the gravity is about twice what we're used to. Marine Sergeant Ben Torres hefted his rifle and looked at the alien vessel. "I don't like it, Captain. Could be a trap. Maybe they left that ship there on purpose." Ryan understood Ben's concern, but humanity needed information. The first battle had shown that humans could hurt the aliens, but it had also revealed how little they knew about their enemy. "We go in fast and quiet, grab whatever we can, and get out." The boarding shuttle attached to the alien ship with a soft thud. Amy worked quickly to override the airlock systems, her fingers dancing across the control panel. The alien technology was different from human designs, but the basic principles were the same. After 10 minutes of careful work, the door slid open. The interior of the HFY ship was dark and filled with the smell of ozone. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls, and the air hummed with the sound of failing systems. Ryan led his team through corridors that seemed designed for beings much larger than humans. "Look at this," Amy whispered, pointing to a control panel. Their technology is actually less advanced than ours in some ways. This control system is purely mechanical, no adaptive programming at all. Ben examined the walls and noticed something else. These corridors are built like a maze, no direct routes anywhere. It's like they don't trust their own people to move freely around their ships. They found the first body 20 meters from the airlock. The Kethver soldier was tall and reptilian, with gray-green skin and 4 arms. Its armor was ornate, but impractical, covered in decorative elements that would snag on equipment. The alien's weapon lay nearby, a bulky energy rifle that looked more like a ceremonial piece than a practical tool. Their weapons are over-engineered, Amy observed, scanning the device with her instruments. This rifle probably takes 3 times as much energy as necessary to fire. And look at this armor design. It's more about showing status than protecting the wearer. Ryan picked up the alien weapon and felt its weight. It's heavy and clumsy. Our soldiers could never fight effectively with something like this. They moved deeper into the ship, finding more evidence of the alien culture. The living quarters was segregated by rank, with higher-ranking officers enjoying luxury while common soldiers lived in cramped, uncomfortable spaces. The ship's computer systems were centralized, requiring authorization from multiple command levels for even simple operations. "Captain, you need to see this," Amy called from what appeared to be a communications station. She had managed to access the ship's database and was reading through the files. These aliens have conquered 17 different star systems. But look at how they did it. Ryan studied the information on the screen. The Kethver Empire followed the same pattern in every conquest. They would arrive with overwhelming force, demand immediate surrender, and then systematically destroy any resistance. It was effective, but it was also predictable. They've never faced an enemy that adapted during battle, Ryan realized. Every species they conquered either surrendered immediately or fought in conventional formations. We're the first to change tactics mid-fight. Ben found something even more interesting in the ship's holding cells. 3 alien prisoners were locked in separate compartments, clearly not Kethver. They were smaller, with blue skin and large eyes that showed intelligence and fear. "We're not the first species they've attacked," Ben reported. "These look like prisoners from one of their other conquests." Ryan approached the nearest cell and tried to communicate with the prisoner inside. The alien looked up at him with surprise and hope. Using simple gestures and the ship's translation system, Ryan learned that the creature was from a species called the Vaektai. Conquered by the Kethver 5 years ago, the Vaektai prisoner, who called himself Zeth, explained through the translator that the Kethver Empire was built on a rigid caste system. The ruling class made all decisions, the warrior class followed orders without question, and the worker class served both. Any deviation from this system was punished severely. "Your species fights differently," Zeth said, his large eyes wide. With amazement, the Kethver do not understand adaptation. They expect all enemies to follow the same patterns. Amy continued her work on the ship's computer systems and made a startling discovery. The Kethver had detailed files on human civilization, but all their information was wrong. They had studied human entertainment broadcasts and concluded that humans were primitive and violent but easily defeated by superior technology. "They think we're like the aliens in our old movies," Amy laughed. "They expect us to panic and surrender when faced with advanced weapons. They have no idea about human determination or creativity." Dr. Sam Rodriguez, who had joined the boarding team as a technology specialist, was examining the ship's engines and weapon systems. What he found changed everything. "Captain, this is incredible. Their technology is powerful, but it's also inflexible. Every system is designed to work in one specific way." Sam showed Ryan a weapon control panel that had been damaged in the battle. "Look at this. When our weapons disrupted their shield generators, their entire defensive system shut down. They don't have backup systems or adaptive protocols. Their technology is like a house of cards." The implications were staggering. The Kethver Empire had conquered 17 star systems using brute force and intimidation. but they had never faced an enemy that could adapt their own technology on the fly. Humans had been modifying and improving technology for centuries, often in ways the original designers never intended. "We need to get this information back to Earth," Ryan said. "If we can understand their weaknesses, we can turn their own weapons against them." The boarding team spent 2 more hours gathering intelligence before returning to their ship. They brought back alien weapons, computer files, and most importantly Zeth and the other prisoners. The Vegtai had detailed knowledge of Kethver, military doctrine, and were eager to help humanity fight back. As Ryan's ship headed back toward Earth, he transmitted his findings to Admiral Morrison and Commander Brooks. The message was clear: the Kethver Empire was not invincible. Their strength came from rigid adherence to doctrine and overwhelming force. But these same qualities made them vulnerable to human creativity and adaptability. The war was far from over, but humanity now had something they had lacked before: hope. The aliens had made a critical mistake by underestimating human ingenuity. Soon, they would learn that humans were not just another species to be conquered, but a force that could reshape the galaxy itself. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos crouched behind a maintenance panel on the Kethver command ship and listened to the alien voices in the corridor. 2 weeks of preparation had led to this moment. Her infiltration team had spent days learning Kethver patrol patterns and studying the ship's layout from captured data. The alien command vessel was the size of a small city, floating in space above Earth like a dark moon. Getting inside had required stealing a Kethver shuttle and using the prisoner Zeth's knowledge of their security codes. Now, Maria and her team were deep inside the enemy stronghold, searching for intelligence that could change the war. "The command center is 3 levels up," whispered Corporal Danny Walsh, checking his scanner. "But there are guards everywhere." "These aliens don't trust anyone," Maria nodded and signaled her team to follow. They moved through the ship's service tunnels, avoiding the main corridors where Kethver soldiers patrolled. The alien vessel was a maze of redundant security systems and checkpoints designed to prevent any kind of rebellion from within. Engineer Tony Mitchell worked on his portable computer, trying to access the ship's network. "I'm getting partial signals from their communication system," he reported quietly. "The Kethver are having problems with some of their conquered species. There's unrest on several worlds." "What kind of problems?" Maria asked. "Slave revolts. Sabotage, work stoppages," Tony replied. "The Empire controls 17 star systems, but they're spending more resources maintaining control than they're gaining from conquest." This information was valuable, but Maria needed more. The human resistance had been fighting for 3 weeks, and while they had inflicted serious damage on the Kethver fleet, the aliens still had overwhelming numbers. Earth needed a decisive advantage. The team reached the command level and found themselves looking down at a massive control center. Hundreds of Kethver officers worked at stations throughout the chamber, coordinating the invasion of Earth. At the center of it all sat General Vextar, the alien commander who had led the attack on humanity. "Look at how they're organized," Danny observed. "Every decision goes through the command structure. No one does anything without orders from above." Maria studied the alien hierarchy and saw the weakness that human intelligence had suspected. The Kethver Empire was completely dependent on centralized control. Remove the leaders, and the entire system would collapse. Tony plugged his equipment into a data port and began downloading information. "I'm getting their battle plans for the next month," he whispered. "But there's something else here. Communications from other parts of the Empire." The messages Tony discovered told a different story than the one the Kethver had been broadcasting. The Empire was not as united as it appeared. Several conquered species were openly rebelling, and the Kethver military was stretched thin trying to maintain order. "The Zikanari system declared independence 2 months ago," Tony read from the captured data. "The Kethver sent 3 battle groups to crush the rebellion, but they've been tied up in fighting ever since." Maria realized the implications immediately. They're not just invading Earth for resources. They need a quick victory to show the other conquered species that resistance is hopeless. The team continued gathering intelligence. But their presence was discovered when a Kethver technician noticed Tony's data intrusion. Alarms began blaring throughout the command ship, and security forces rushed toward their position. "We need to go now," Maria ordered, but Tony held up his hand. "Wait, I found something important," he said, his fingers flying over his equipment. "The Kethver have a secret communication channel that bypasses their normal hierarchy. It's used by lower-ranking officers to report on their superiors. The information in that channel was explosive. Kethver officers were questioning the invasion of Earth, complaining about heavy losses and expressing doubt about their leadership. The rigid discipline that held the Empire together was beginning to crack. "Download everything and let's move," Maria commanded as Kethver. Soldiers approached their hiding spot. The escape from the command ship was chaotic and dangerous. The team fought their way through corridors filled with alien soldiers, using captured Kethver weapons and their superior mobility to stay ahead of pursuit. They reached their stolen shuttle just as the entire ship went into lockdown. Back on Earth, the intelligence Maria's team had gathered changed everything. Admiral Morrison and Commander Brooks studied the captured data with growing excitement. The Kethver Empire was not the invincible force it appeared to be. "They're fighting rebellions on 6 different worlds," Admiral Morrison said. "Their military is spread across dozens of star systems, trying to maintain control. The force attacking Earth is actually just a small portion of their total strength." Commander Brooks saw the strategic opportunity. "If we can convince their subject species to rebel simultaneously, the Kethver won't have enough forces to crush all the uprisings." Engineer Tony Mitchell had made another crucial discovery while analyzing the alien communication systems. "I can hack into their network," he announced. "Their security is designed to prevent their own people from communicating freely, but it's vulnerable to outside intrusion." The plan that emerged was audacious. Instead of just defending Earth, humanity would reach out to the Kethver empires, oppress subjects, and offer them something the aliens never had. Hope for Freedom. Captain Steve Harrison volunteered to make the first broadcast. His message was simple but powerful. To all species enslaved by the Kethver Empire, "We are the humans of Earth. We have fought your oppressors and defeated them in battle. We offer you alliance, not conquest. Join us and we will fight for your freedom." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species across the galaxy began broadcasting their own messages of rebellion. The Vegtai, who had been conquered 5 years ago, launched coordinated attacks on Kethver installations. The Mordant, enslaved for over a decade, began sabotaging mining operations. Most importantly, the slave soldiers who served in the Kethver military began turning against their masters. These beings had been forced to fight for the Empire, but they had never forgotten their desire for freedom. The effect on the Kethver fleet around Earth was immediate and devastating. Ships that had been preparing for the final assault on the planet suddenly found themselves under attack from their own crews. Slave soldiers, inspired by the human message of liberation, began fighting back against their oppressors. General Vextar watched in horror as his carefully planned invasion collapsed around him. The rigid hierarchy that had made the Kethver Empire powerful was now working against them. Lower-ranking officers were afraid to report the rebellions, and the command structure was paralyzed by indecision. "How can this be happening?" Vextar demanded of his staff. "These primitive humans should have surrendered weeks ago." But the humans had done something the Kethver had never encountered before. Instead of accepting defeat, they had turned the Empire's own subjects against it. The message of freedom was spreading faster than the Kethver could contain it. As reports of rebellions poured in from across the galaxy, it became clear that the invasion of Earth had triggered something much larger. The Kethver Empire, which had seemed invincible just weeks ago, was now fighting for its very survival. The war was far from over, but the momentum had shifted. Humanity had proven that they were not just another species to be conquered, but a force that could inspire others to fight for their freedom. The Empire's greatest strength, its ability to control through fear, had become its greatest weakness. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the newly constructed human flagship and watched the stars stretch into lines as they entered hyperspace. 6 months had passed since the Kethver invasion of Earth, and now humanity was taking the fight to the Empire's homeworlds. The ship around him was a fusion of human engineering and captured alien technology, faster and more powerful than anything either species had built alone. "Jump complete, Admiral," reported Navigation Officer Kate Phillips. "We're now in the Kethman system. The fortress world is directly ahead." Jake looked at the tactical display and saw the massive planet that served as one of the Empire's primary military bases. Kethman was supposed to be impregnable, surrounded by defensive stations and protected by the most elite units in the Kethver military. But intelligence gathered from liberated worlds had revealed weaknesses that human forces could exploit. "Colonel Walsh, are your Marines ready?" Jake asked. Colonel Danny Walsh checked his equipment one final time. "Ready as we'll ever be, Admiral. The Vektai guides say the fortress has a vulnerability in its lower levels. If we can get inside, we can disable their main shields." The human fleet had grown dramatically over the past months. Ships from liberated worlds had joined the cause, bringing with them knowledge of Kethver tactics and technology. The Morden contributed their advanced sensors, while the Zikanari provided weapons that could penetrate alien armor. "Incoming transmission from the Planetary Defense Force," Kate announced. "They're demanding we surrender and submit to Empire authority." Jake smiled grimly. "Tell them we're here to offer them the same choice they gave Earth: surrender or be destroyed." The battle for Kethman began with a coordinated assault on the orbital defense platforms. Human ships, now equipped with captured Kethver weapons, struck at the alien installations with precision and fury. The fortress world's defenders had never faced an enemy that combined human tactics with their own technology. Commander Lisa Brooks led a squadron of fighters through the defensive grid, her pilots weaving between energy blasts with skill that amazed their alien allies. "The Kethver are trying to fight us like we're another Empire fleet," she reported. "But we're not following their playbook." The alien defenses were formidable but predictable. Every gun placement, every shield generator, every defensive position followed standard Empire doctrine. Human forces, advised by former Kethver slaves, knew exactly where to strike for maximum effect. "Target their command and control centers," Jake ordered. "Without central coordination, their defenses will collapse." The assault on the fortress world lasted 18 hours. Human Marines, supported by Vektai infiltrators and Morden technical specialists, fought their way through the planet's underground complexes. The Kethver defenders were brave but inflexible, unable to adapt to the guerrilla tactics that had made humans so effective. Colonel Walsh planted charges in the main shield generator while his team held off waves of alien soldiers. 30 seconds to detonation," he announced over the radio. "Everyone clear the area." The explosion that followed shook the entire fortress. With their shields down, the Kethver installations were vulnerable to orbital bombardment. Human ships poured fire into the military bases, destroying weapons factories and command centers. But the real victory came from an unexpected source. As the battle raged, the planet's slave population began to rise up. Inspired by reports of successful rebellions on other worlds, they turned against their Kethver masters. The fortress world's own workers became its downfall. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from multiple installations," Kate reported. "The Kethver military command is requesting terms." Jake considered the request. The Empire's leaders had never shown mercy to their enemies, but humanity was fighting for something different. "Tell them we accept their surrender. All Kethver military personnel will be treated as prisoners of war according to galactic law." The liberation of Kethman sent shockwaves throughout the Empire. If one of their most secure worlds could fall to human forces, nowhere was safe. Panic spread through the Kethver leadership as they realized their 1,000-year empire was crumbling around them. Supreme Overlord Thakvin, the absolute ruler of the Kethver Empire, called an emergency meeting of his highest commanders. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "These humans were supposed to be primitive savages. How are they defeating our most elite forces?" General Vexstar, who had survived the failed invasion of Earth, tried to explain. The humans fight differently than any enemy we've faced. They adapt constantly, use our own weapons against us, and, worst of all, they inspire our subject species to rebel. Then we must crush them with overwhelming force, Thakvin declared. Recall all fleets from the outer territories. I want every ship we have concentrated for a final assault on the human homeworld. But the Empire's military was scattered across dozens of star systems, fighting rebellions and trying to maintain control. Many units couldn't be recalled, because they were the only thing preventing complete chaos on their assigned worlds. Meanwhile, Commander Kate Phillips was working with liberated alien scientists to establish a new form of government. Unlike the Empire's rigid hierarchy, the Galactic Liberation Council represented all species equally. Former enemies worked together, sharing knowledge and resources. The Kethver never understood cooperation, explained Dr. Zeth, the Vektai scientist who had become humanity's first alien ally. They ruled through fear and domination. But you humans have shown us that different species can work together. As equals, the Liberation Fleet continued its advance toward the Empire's core worlds. Each victory brought new allies and more intelligence about Kethver weaknesses. The humans had learned that the Empire's strength came from its subjects. Belief that resistance was hopeless. Once that belief was shattered, the entire system began to collapse. On the industrial world of Vector Prime, human forces arrived to find the planet already in the hands of rebel forces. The Kethver garrison had been overthrown by their own workers, who had been inspired by broadcasts from Earth. We did not need rescue, the rebel leader explained to Colonel Walsh. We needed only to know that freedom was possible. Your species has given us that knowledge. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The Empire's slave soldiers deserted in massive numbers, taking their ships and weapons with them. Entire worlds declared independence, knowing that human forces would support them if the Kethver tried to retaliate. The psychological impact was devastating for the Empire. Their military doctrine was based on the assumption that superior technology and ruthless discipline would always triumph. But humans had proven that creativity, cooperation, and the desire for freedom were more powerful than any weapon. Admiral Morrison received regular reports from across the galaxy. The Kethver Empire was collapsing faster than anyone had thought possible. Rebellions were spreading to worlds that humans had never even heard of. As news of the liberation movement traveled through underground networks. We started this war trying to defend Earth, Jake said to his staff. Now we're liberating an entire galaxy. The Kethver made a fatal mistake when they underestimated what humans could accomplish. The final phase of the war was beginning. The Empire's remaining forces were retreating toward their capital world, making their last stand at the seat of power that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. Humanity and their allies prepared for the ultimate battle, knowing that victory would mean freedom for billions of beings across the stars. General Chris Morgan watched as the massive Kethver capital world filled the viewscreen of his assault ship. Kethver Prime was a world of gleaming towers and fortress-like structures, built to showcase the Empire's power and intimidate anyone who dared approach it. But today, ships from dozens of liberated worlds surrounded the planet, and the Empire's seat of power was about to fall. The final battle for the galaxy had begun. Every remaining Kethver warship defended their homeworld with desperate fury. They knew that if the capital fell, their 1,000-year empire would end forever. But the Liberation Fleet was too large and too determined to be stopped. All units, this is Admiral Morrison. Jake's voice came over the communication system. Today we finish what the Kethver started when they invaded Earth. We're not here for conquest or revenge. We're here to free the galaxy from tyranny. The space battle above Kethver Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships fought alongside Vektai cruisers, Morden fighters, and vessels from a dozen other species. The Empire's rigid tactics were useless against such a diverse force that constantly changed its approach. Their defense grid is collapsing, reported Captain Steve Harrison from his command ship. The Kethver never planned for a simultaneous attack from so many different directions. Chris Morgan led the ground assault team that would capture the Imperial Palace. His force included human marines, Vectai infiltrators, and former Kethver slaves who knew the palace layout. They had one mission: reach Supreme Overlord Thakvin and end the Empire's reign of terror. The landing was chaotic. Kethver forces fought street by street through the capital city, but their morale was breaking. Many alien soldiers simply threw down their weapons and surrendered when they saw the liberation forces. Others fled toward the palace, hoping to make their final stand there. "The civilian population is staying in their homes," reported Sergeant Ben Torres. "They're not fighting us. I think they're as tired of this war as everyone else." Chris's team fought their way through the outer defenses of the Imperial Palace. The building was a monument to Kethver arrogance, with statues of alien conquerors and displays of weapons taken from defeated enemies. But now those displays would become symbols of liberation instead of oppression. The palace guards were the Empire's most elite soldiers, but they fought with the desperation of beings who knew their cause was lost. They followed their orders without question, just as they had been trained, but their rigid discipline made them predictable. Human tactics that emphasized flexibility and improvisation proved superior even here. "Palace defenses are down," Chris reported as his team reached the main entrance. "We're going in after Thakvin." The interior of the palace was a maze of corridors and ceremonial chambers, all designed to impress visitors with the Empire's power. But Chris and his team moved through it with purpose, guided by intelligence gathered from former palace slaves who had joined the liberation movement. They found Supreme Overlord Thakvin in the throne room, a massive chamber dominated by a chair carved from a single piece of black stone. The alien ruler sat motionless, surrounded by his remaining guards, staring at displays that showed the destruction of his empire. "It's over, Thakvin," Chris said as his team surrounded the throne. "Your empire is finished. Surrender now and prevent more bloodshed." The Supreme Overlord looked up with eyes that burned with hatred and disbelief. "This cannot be happening. The Kethver Empire has ruled for 1,000 years. We conquered 17 star systems. How can we be defeated by primitive barbarians?" "Because you never understood what makes a civilization truly strong," Chris replied. "You built your empire on fear and oppression. We built our alliance on hope and cooperation." Admiral Morrison entered the throne room as the last of the palace guards surrendered. The man who had defended Earth from invasion now stood in the heart of the enemy's power. "The fleet reports complete victory," Jake announced. "All Kethver military forces have surrendered or been destroyed." Thakvin rose from his throne, his massive form towering over the humans. "You think you have won, but you understand nothing. Without the Empire, the galaxy will fall into chaos. The lesser species need strong leadership to maintain order." "A lesser species," Jake repeated with disgust. "That's your problem right there. You never saw other beings as equals, you saw them as resources to be exploited." The Supreme Overlord's expression showed complete confusion. "Of course they are resources. That is the natural order. The strong rule the weak. It has always been so." "Not anymore," Chris said firmly. "From now on, every species in this galaxy will have a voice in how they're governed. No more emperors, no more overlords, no more slavery." Thakvin was taken into custody, but not executed. The liberation forces had decided that the new galaxy would be built on justice, not revenge. The former Supreme Overlord would stand trial for his crimes, but he would receive a fair hearing according to the laws that would govern the new galactic society. In the weeks that followed, representatives from every liberated world gathered on Kethver Prime to establish the Galactic Liberation Council. The planet that had once been the seat of tyranny became the birthplace of freedom. The ornate throne room was converted into a democratic assembly hall where every species had equal representation. Admiral Morrison was chosen as the first chancellor, but he insisted that the position would rotate among different species every few years. "No one person or species should have permanent power," he explained. "That's how empires start." Dr. Zeth, the Vektai scientist, who had become humanity's first alien ally, helped draft the new galactic constitution. "The humans have taught us something remarkable," he said during the Constitutional Convention. "True strength comes not from domination but from cooperation." The reconstruction of the galaxy was a massive undertaking. Worlds that had been strip-mined for resources needed to be restored. Species that had been enslaved for generations needed help rebuilding their societies. The weapons factories of the Empire were converted to produce tools for construction instead of destruction, but perhaps the most important change was psychological. For 1,000 years, the galaxy's inhabitants had lived under the shadow of the Empire. Now they were free to dream of better futures for themselves and their children. Commander Kate Phillips established the new Galactic Communication Network, allowing free exchange of information between all worlds. "The Empire controlled people by controlling information," she explained. "We'll keep people free by making sure they can communicate with each other." As Jake Morrison sat in the council chamber where the alien throne had once stood, he reflected on how much had changed. The Empire had tried to invade Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a force that would transform the entire galaxy. The ornate throne was gone, replaced by a simple round table where representatives from dozens of species worked together as equals. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun. Ships departed from the former capital daily, carrying the message of freedom to distant corners of the galaxy. Wherever they went, they found beings ready to embrace the idea that different species could work together without domination or oppression. The Kethver Empire was dead, but something better had taken its place. Humanity had not conquered the alien throne, they had replaced it with something far more powerful, the idea that all beings deserved freedom and dignity. The galaxy would never be the same.